Today, I'll be completing the trifecta of Islands of Adventure roller coasters, and today I will be doing a coaster review on the Incredible Hulk. The Incredible Hulk is a bone-crushing experience that has some of the most intense moments in the world. But at the same time, there are some things about it that I don't like that I will be discussing today. But let's hop right in. To start, I will be talking about the entry experience and the queue line, which, since it's at Universal, you know it's going to be good. First, you walk under the ride to get there, which is very cool to see the whole coaster above you with riders on it. Then the plaza itself is nothing amazing since it's just a big open space, but the front entrance is so good. It's a huge statue of the Hulk carrying the old train from the ride before, and you can see a piece of broken track, which is an actual piece of track from the old Incredible Hulk from before it was rebuilt in 2016. Then you walk under that, go through some metal detectors, so no metal on the ride allowed, and then you get into the main part of the queue. You walk into the main building, and it's like you're entering just a huge science lab because all this science stuff is just lying around everywhere. You go to the left, and there is a lot to look at over here. You have some screens talking about what's going to happen, and all the tests, and all the gamma radiation, and many other small details to look at. And every time the ride launches, there's this big roar inside, which can get a little bit annoying, but it's basically to symbolize that a gamma ray test went on and that there's people being tested, which I like the idea. Then you take some switchbacks and hit the actual gamma rays. It's super cool to look into, seeing those electric things. And if you ever had one of those electric ball things, I'll pull it up on screen. It's like that, but just supersized. Then you go up some stairs and go around these big tube things, which have these DNA-like strands in them, which is also very cool. Then, as you're about to reach the ride, they show you some videos of people turning into the Hulk from the gamma radiation, and they say that's going to happen to you, and you got to get ready for the transformation. Then you get to your train, which is the OG B&M restraint in trains, which people love a lot. Plus, the theming in the station is amazing too. Above you, there are these big gamma things that I don't really know what they are, but they're huge and look crazy. It's insane seeing everybody get locked in and seeing all the pipes and gadgets connected to make it look like it's an actual transformation machine. But you get all strapped in and you are ready for the ride on the Incredible Hulk. Now let's head to the actual ride section, and this ride is hit or miss for me. Why this is because sometimes the ride seems to be running insanely well, being glass smooth, and the old school over-the-shoulder restraints feel amazing. But on other days, the ride just has a big rattle to it that isn't pleasant at all. And when that happens, I almost feel like having the vest instead of the old school B&M restraints would have been better, since it would restrict all headbanging. But getting past the minor gripes, this ride is a tale of two halves. There is the first half, which I would say is elite and has some of the most intense moments not only in the park, but in the world. But the second half just isn't good, it's boring, it's a letdown, and it's just super slow. But you go up the tunnel, and the walls on all sides are very cool, having a lot of circle things that are white, and then as you slowly rise up, they slowly start turning green. Then you hear the Hulk roar, you see all the circles turn fully green, and then you transform into the Hulk and get shot out into the zero-G roll. The launch, even though just tires, is super underrated and very forceful. Then you get to the zero-G roll, which is my favorite moment of the entire ride. Since it comes right after the launch, you are thrown into it with so much speed, and it's amazing. The whip is crazy, you get some good airtime while spinning, it's elite in every feeling. You then fall into some people's favorite moment, and it's definitely worth that title, and that's the Cobra Roll. This thing is just so cinematic over the water, and it's actually the first part of the ride that you see while pulling up to the park, which is amazing. The whip in and out are crazy, and for a solid 5 seconds, you are glued to the back of your seat because of how intense it is. You roll into the next element, and that's the vertical loop. This is like a continuation of the Cobra Roll, since it goes right into it without laying off the gas at all. Similarly, it's super cinematic as well, but it is another amazing moment of intensity, easily 4 Gs, and a great inversion. Then the ride slows down a little bit, having a small turn, which may not be the most intense thing ever, but it is nice to get a little bit of breather after the back-to-back-to-back bone-crushing inversions, and it goes around the tunnel that you shoot out of, so another very similarly cinematic moment. Then you roll into a corkscrew, which is solid. It has some good whip through it, and it's not too slow like some other corkscrews, but it can be very bad. Sometimes they can be pretty rough, and while you're going through it, it's just a huge rattle, which can just throw your brain and your head straight into the restraint, which can give you a pretty bad headache. Overall, I would say okay element, but it can definitely be pretty painful. Then you fall into another vertical loop, which isn't as good as the first one, but is still pretty good. It gives a nice amount of positives, and since it's in a little dugout space, you get a little bit of extra speed to make it even better. And I like when rides do this because I think that it makes the element that much better. And I know many other rides like Montu does this, and I think that any ride that does this great is stellar. After the second loop of the ride, you go upwards into a weird rise to the left, and then once you get to the top, you are then sharply dropped to the right, which is insanely strange for this type of ride. It's also super whippy, so be careful, since I know on my first ride, I wasn't expecting it to hit my head pretty good. But other than it maybe giving some pain if you're not careful, it is pretty unique for this type of ride. Then you hit the mid-course, ending the first half of the ride, which sadly does kick a lot of that speed out of the train, and it makes for the second half to be very, very slow, sadly. You fall into another corkscrew, which is okay, but since all of the remaining speed was zapped from the train, it's just so slow. So it's not forceful, and it's not slow enough to give you any hang time. It's just not that good. And honestly, it was probably just added to get up to the 7 inversion count, which is alright, but I just wish that the trims didn't hit so bad. Then you finish the ride with some low-to-the-ground turns, which sadly have no force, which I think that if they did have some force, this could have been really good. First half, huge inversions. Second half, low-to-the-ground turns that are insanely intense. That would have been like a great way to end the ride, but sadly, that mid-course just hits too strong most of the time. After the low-to-the-ground turns, you rise up into the final brake run, concluding your ride on the Incredible Hulk. Overall, the first half is amazing, full of some bone-crushing inversions that are legit amazing, coming from someone that isn't huge into positives. But the second half isn't as good, and isn't really good at all, for being real, and brings down the ride a lot for me. But overall, I give the Incredible Hulk a solid 8 out of 10, and I like it a lot more than other B&M loopers. And I think that the theming isn't as good as the other 2 coasters in the park, but hey, I'll take this type of theming over no theming any day of the week easily, and I think that the combination of the 2 are pretty good. Thanks for watching. Comment down below what you think of the Incredible Hulk. I know a lot of people love this thing, so I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And other than that, have a good day.